Oh, and then Hello and welcome to another episode of
Absolute Game Off. Nerd! Absolute Game.
Didn't mean to show that again a second. Anyways, episode 102, and we got another monster with us. We have the return of Mickey, aka Swagglehaus. So Mickey, what's up? How you doing?
What's going on, Rohan, man? Good to see you. Thanks for having me on once again. And all's good in comic land, I think.
Right on. And look, right away, here's Manu saying what's up. And then we got Erwin saying what's up. What's up, guys? Thanks for joining. But yeah, there's a number of things we want to talk about. Obviously, we've had Mickey on before, so we're not going to have to do the whole origin story kind of thing, but we're going to kind of talk about what's going on and a number of things. And one of the things that he and I were just talking about backstage that I kind of wanted to start with is we were talking about going to conventions. And I've watched a number of your videos, whether it be OAX, New York Comic Con, C2E2, the ones over the last couple of years. And we on this channel we've talked a lot about. We did this Terrificon trip last year. We want to do something annual. We're doing Heroes Con this year. How we chose them, as I was telling you, is we were going on what people thought. What is the best for actual collectors? So we don't necessarily need the pomp and circumstance of like the pop culture stuff and all that kind of thing. But when it comes to purely collecting, what are the best ones? I'm curious to start with, first off, A, which all ones have you gone to now? And then B, how would you rank them?
Man, it's hard because it's my rank would be affected depending on like how you want to grade it. If it's only for buying, then like yes, I have to sort of shift like what I think are the best cons. But unfortunately, I think that the best comic cons are actually ones that I haven't gone to. And we talked about this before we started the show, but apparently Heroes Con that everyone talks about that's in Charlotte, and then Baltimore Comic Con are really the two best comic cons, at least from what people tell me, that as far as like if you're somebody who's going to buy comic books, these are the ones to go to. It's like the entire show floor is all comic dealers. It's like all about, buying the comics. No other of those like tchotchke things, like you said, no like, pomp and circumstance and cosplay and all that sort of thing, which is, fun if that's what you want to go to a con for. But if you're going purely to buy, I think it's those two. And sadly, I haven't been to any of them. So I can't really say if they live up to the hype in that regard. But of the ones I've been to, certainly there's a bunch of the local small comic cons, which I think actually that might be the answer to my question, is going to the local small ones. Like, yeah, the one day show where you have like the non-professional dealer, like the mom and pop person who goes to sell your comics, because usually that ends up being the best deals or the most competitive pricing that you can find. But I've been to, as far as the big ones, San Diego, C2E2, WonderCon, New York Comic Con. I think those are all like the main ones I've been to.
How would you rank those monsters then? Like, how would you rank those? I'm curious.
I mean, are we talking about purely for buying?
No. I want to talk about just like fun experience, like, think about all the factors. Cause like, I'm not a super huge volume buyer anyways. So like there is a part of me that's like, yeah, I got to go to San Diego Comic Con once. And it would be fun to go to New York Comic Con. Like, I think all of them I'd have fun at. And the fun places also, like obviously LA, New York, C2 Chicago, like these are also fun places to go just in general for a trip.
Yeah. I would have to say that I think San Diego Comic Con is the most fun. But I'm going to caveat it a little bit because it's not so much that when you're inside the building, that's where the fun is. It's all of the ancillary things that are happening, like going into the gas lamp and going to like the after parties and like meeting and hanging out with people and going to like the bar that's down the street or going to the whatever event that is connected to the con. Like San Diego, like crushes with that type of stuff. So I think if you go to San Diego, and your expectation is like you're just going to take in the entire city and the whole environment of it, that to me is the best. And then I would say New York is probably a close second. But
Okay.
like the difference is that like when you're inside the building of New York, probably pound for pound inside the building at the con, the New York one is better. But as soon as you walk out of the building, it's like Manhattan just takes over.
Yeah, when it comes to New York, I mean, I'm a big Seahawks fan, and when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, 2013 season, 2014 Super Bowl, it was in New York. And I remember like I went the following year when it was in Phoenix as well when we lost. And you go to Phoenix and it's Super Bowl is everywhere, right? But the year prior when it was in New York, Super Bowl is like legitimately the biggest event of the one-day event of the year here. And there are so many parts of New York where you'd go to and it's like you would have no idea the Super Bowl was there. Like you had to go to like Manhattan direct like Times Square to know that the Super Bowl was there. Like it was that's just how big New York is. So I totally get that. Um I am curious on San Diego, have you ever done the Hall H? Like got into Hall
No,
H? Oh,
no. Not only have I not done it, I haven't even like attempted to do it because I was like, no way am I gonna like
as
camp
someone,
overnight.
I was gonna say, as someone who has never been to San Diego Comic, like, what does it even take to get into Hall H? I'm curious.
I'm not the best person to ask because again, I haven't done it, but like I do know a couple people that have done it, and they say like, yeah, you have to basically camp, if not fully. If we're talking about the Marvel Hall H,
Mhm. Yeah,
if not fully camp, where literally it's overnight. I mean, it's you're going to be in line at whatever it is, 4 in the morning, and you're standing there until 7 p.m. when the doors open or something like that. So it's I suppose if it's like maybe you're from somewhere outside the country and, this is like the one thing that you're going to see and you're willing to just go for it, like, then by all means, like it makes sense. But, for maybe the novelty is not so appealing to
yeah,
me at this point,
yeah. The cost of admission is quite high, and even for how
Yeah.
cool it would be, like I don't know if I'd pay the price. Um, I did want to mention like our experience at Terrificon last year, which I've harped on a lot here on this channel, but I do love the fact though there obviously there's not a city there to enjoy necessarily, but the fact that like it's in a casino and so you're completely like I didn't see the sky for 3 straight days because like everything you needed was in there. That does have its benefits to it, especially if you go and do it with a group of people. Like that was definitely a cool experience. So I would definitely
Yeah,
recommend
you're right.
that one.
That was a good one. That definitely deserves an honorable mention from me. Like it is a lot of fun. And all it makes me think about is how underutilized or underperforming Vegas Comic Con is.
Oh yeah,
Like you would just think
I
that
don't
like
even think of Vegas having a Comic Con.
exactly. I mean, they have one, but it's like I've actually never been to it. Like nobody talks about it, and it's sort of like you would think that they could make it like one of the biggest ones, but I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you think that would be a huge hit too, with yeah, with everything going on. The one I want to talk a lot more in detail on is I want to hear more about your experience at OAX, like, and that's what a lot we're going to talk about today is original art. It's something that I've started talking about a lot more. I've started poking my toe into the water on, and I really loved your videos from OAX. Like to be perfectly honest, like I loved seeing when you had Dinesh like basically bartering right there for pieces of art.
Oh my
Like
God.
to me,
Yeah.
that is exactly like the other footage I like is when people are just going through and showing. Like I just want to see all the art because like you don't get to see these things on a regular basis. But then like outside of that, like watching like that deal go down, like that is prime hobby content for me that I want to see. But yeah, tell me about your experience with OAX, your thoughts, like, and then also want to even know like from an aspect of if you were someone that wanted to go and buy OA there, what did you think of it?
Yeah, so I definitely enjoyed OAX. If people don't know, it's in Orlando, and it was only this last time I went. It was only in its second year, so it's pretty
Mhm.
new as far as it being like this con. But as from what people talk about already within the art community, they're already like everyone already dubs this as like this is already the best art show. So a lot of people within the art world were telling me like, oh, you got to come out, you got to come out. And I have a good friend, Carl Choi. Shout out to 24/7 Comics, who he
Real quick, I literally saw a post by Carl Choi last night. So last week I interviewed Casciato Comics, who's a big OA guy, and he was telling me about
Yeah.
people. And Carl Choi posted this Barry Windsor Smith Wolverine page yesterday, and I like screenshot it. I sent it to Sam, and I was like, "Do you know this guy?" He's like, "Oh yeah, Carl Choi's great," and like he's like, "Got a
Yeah.
great." So now you mentioned that's funny.
Oh, you should definitely meet Carl. He's a good dude for sure, and he knows a lot about art. And yes, he did just buy like literally this week this Barry Windsor Smith Marvel Comics Presents page. But yeah, so he was like, oh, you got to come out to the show. It's amazing, and you know the people like Dinesh were telling me, and Zatari, and all those groups of friends of art collectors were telling me to come out. And so I decided, like, yeah, why not? You know, let's check it out. So uh, it's not like a huge show. I mean, it's more of it's a 2 day show, so it's a tweener. It's not as big as Terrific Con, but you know, it's maybe a slight step below in terms of size and scale of Terrific Con. But it's incredible. I mean, if you're somebody who wants to buy art and appreciate some of the most expensive pieces there are, that's definitely the place to go. And it was actually really cool because they did a good job setting up like genuine galleries, which that was actually the most fun part. Is it was like, yes, like there's vendors there and you can like buy art or you can get, stuff signed. But sometimes you just want to walk through like a gallery that's like set up and it's like, oh, here's people's really expensive pieces. And like they're not for sale, but like as we all know, everything has a price. And that was like the most fun part because you get to like just appreciate, people's like whatever ridiculous collections, and a lot of it was like the Marvel card original art stuff. And yeah, I had a ton of fun going to it. It's at a hotel there, and in Orlando, not too far from Disney World if you want to do that as well. But yeah, it was a good show. I didn't end up buying anything,
That was going
but
to
I
be my
went
next
fully.
question.
Yeah, I went fully intending to buy something if in fact like something appealed to me, but I just didn't see the right thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we'll talk about being picky with OA as well here in a few minutes. I do want to ask, just in general, like what were like the coolest pieces you saw there in your opinion that like really hit the feels for you?
Well, we talked about it before we started, but it was like the Marvel card art that was there. Like this particular OAX had a big presence of Marvel card art, and so a lot of the Series One and Series Two original art stuff was there. There was like a Mephisto card from the Series One set. There
Yeah.
was a lot of the Joe Jusko pieces that were from like the Marvel Masterpieces. I think the '92 set that were there. So it was really the card art. Like seeing all that stuff was really, really like it just it's so much nostalgia for I feel like people like our age, because as much as I grew up on comic books, I probably grew up more with the comic cards,
Yep.
because it's like whatever, when you're sick, you're not actually reading the comics. Although, in
Exactly,
theory,
but and that's things I tell people is that it was those cards that is actually absolutely the Kickstarter, because yes, I had some
yeah,
comics that I collected, but it's like, did I actually sit down and read them? Honestly, no, I didn't. What I did read was those backs of Series 1, Series 2,
yeah,
Series 3, and then the other one for me was the 92 Jim Lee X-Men set. And those cards backs would tell me the entire story, and then that's how I fell in love with the character. So I always tell people like there's nothing more nostalgic in this hobby than those cards. And so the OA involved with them is just like, I mean, that's grail level stuff for me as well.
yeah.
Just it's so cool to see. And it's just such a shame that like, had we been into this, like, I mean, you could go down the heritage rabbit hole, as I'm sure you may have. And if you just type in like Marvel trading card art, you could see those specific pieces from those sets not going for a lot in the last 10 years. And it's like, if we'd only been here 5 years ago, 10 years ago,
Man.
like you could have gotten your hands on so much of it.
Yeah, it's just something that like, I didn't even think about, as far as like the potential of buying some of that stuff. And so I'm just
Mhm.
like, I'm like kicking myself because it was only like last year when it's like the light bulb moment of like, oh yeah, like this stuff must exist. We should start looking for it. So, but I think we're probably still early because it feels like a lot of that stuff
Oh,
sold for cheaper than it should have.
I agree. I still think now, I mean, the barrier to entry for most original art, I think, is still pretty high. But I am a
Yeah,
firm believer that it is still a very immature market. And I mean, really, I kind of think the sky's the limit. Especially, I mean, just like with comics, like I'm a firm believer in like the big books have big values, and with OA, the like, sure, you could get random pages here and there. You know, I mean, cheap in OA world is, let's say, $500, $800. That's not, that's still a lot of money, but like there are, obviously it gets exponentially higher than that for the big key pieces. But yeah, I still think that it's a very immature market, and I think it's only going to see it explode as more and more awareness happens. And I'm sure OAX is going to only expand in size in terms of the amount of art that's there, the amount of dealers and exhibits that are there, and the amount of people that go. Because you think about, again, I obviously was not around when all these big Comic Cons started originally, but like there was no YouTubes and things like that. And you just think about how many videos we saw this year in its second year of conception of channels that went to OAX and are just like videos, a video each day, multiple videos each day. And so like the awareness is going to only spike.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
Yeah. Did you, when you were there, I'm just curious, were there any like artists that you chummed it up with? Like anyone there that you were hoping to meet or anything?
Yeah, there were a few different artists that were there. I mean, a lot of comic book artists, a lot of the Marvel card artists as well. Julie Bell was one that was there. She was kind of like a big name, and it was cool. They had some discussions about some of the process and like some of the work that they did. So it was cool to see that, and I got sit in on her talking about. I think she did like Marvel Masterpieces like
96,
1990
90. Oh yeah,
or
she did
90s.
93 too.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
She did a couple different ones. And so like, just listening to her talk about some of it was cool. And so like, yeah, those were, I didn't go specifically for them, but it was like a definite bonus. That was like, oh, they were there.
Yeah. I mean, so this is a good segue into kind of like the main topic I did want to talk about, which is original art. Is, as I said, something I've started to dip my toes in. And I know just watching your channel, you've definitely started to, I mean, I'd say probably more than dip your toes in. You've gotten a couple pieces. And so kind of talk to me about the evolution from, not that you've stopped comics, but like, how did you kind of get to where you are now, or what kind of sparked it?
Yeah. Well, it started with Carl, to be honest. Like I already mentioned him, but we talk all the time, and he's a big art collector. And so he's just always been somebody who's kind of, uh, kept me informed in the art world, and just started, sharing stuff with me and sharing things that he's been picking up and looking at his collection. And I'm somebody who's like, I'm big into Magic the Gathering. As far as like, I just appreciate the art in the game, and I actually do a lot of work for their company and all this stuff. But like,
Hmm.
there's this Facebook thread that I belong to that's like an art market there. So every time a new Magic the Gathering set comes out, they'll auction off a lot of the pieces. So I've been watching that for like a year or so, just like keeping tabs on art pieces. And I bought one piece, a year ago or so from that art market. And I'm always following it and paying attention. And that kind of started to get my art juices flowing. And eventually you go into comic art fans and you start doing deep
Yeah.
dives, and
You
you do
go
go
down the
down the
road.
rabbit hole, and then you start looking at like, oh, what about Marvel cards? And you're looking for that, and you find pieces. And then like what it's really become is it's like the hunt that we all enjoy in comic books or other collectibles becomes like even more of this like game within art, because like you have to just figure out if the art piece exists, and knowing where to look that up is actually really difficult. Like sometimes it's like, well, maybe the original artist still owns it, and I've been like sliding into DMs of like artists who did stuff like way back in the day, and just trying to introduce myself network to like buy some of their stuff, and going on people's comic art fans or like researching. So it's that hunt that makes it really fun. And so with comic books, like I still very much enjoy it, and I like that's where I spend most of my hobby money. But like it's I don't know, there's something different about looking for art pieces than like if you need an A15, you'll be able to find it,
Yeah, for
somewhere.
sure.
So
How do
it's
you?
that chase.
Well, first off, I want to ask, since you mentioned Magic the Gathering, where do we stack Marvel, MTG? How do those stack rank for you?
Marvel's higher. Marvel's
Okay,
higher for me.
got
But it's just, Magic is kind of its cool niche. I think what I like about it is I really enjoy like fantasy art.
you. Mhm.
So even though I'm not like big into Lord of the Rings and stuff, I very much enjoy like that style. So it's like the the style of Magic is more in that world, but Marvel obviously hits more of a nostalgia for me.
And at OAX, didn't they have that Hildebrandt Lord of the Rings piece there? Wasn't that there? Yeah,
They
that would.
did, yeah. And that's going up for sale soon, I think, on
Oh,
Heritage.
I mean, I can't even imagine what a price on that
Yeah.
would go for.
It's huge. It's like bigger than my wingspan.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let me ask this question then. So, how do you look at? So, I think you and I probably collect along a similar parallel when it comes to comics. Like, I don't think I'm not. Based on your videos, I don't think you are too like a volume collector. Um,
Mm.
you're more of a sniper than I. I don't know what the other term would be, but like, especially like I know you got an affinity for big books, big first appearances, and things like that. How do you kind of manage, now that you've got this into OA, like, oh, do I want to get first Fantastic Four or do I want to get a Darkhawk page?
Yeah. It's very interesting and different for art. And I can't say that I've fully figured out like how I want to curate my art buying. Um, but I do think about it a lot because with comic books, I think I'll buy anything in comic in the comic world that is something that I kind of like and I'm getting a good deal.
Hmm.
Because I know that if I ever want to sell that comic book, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Like Punisher isn't necessarily my favorite character, but if I see an ASM 129 and it's a good deal, like I might buy it because it's like cool, I'd like to have this book. And if I need to sell it, like it's really easy to like put it on eBay and like, okay, on to whoever else wants it now. But like with the art thing, it's like if I buy like a Dark Hawk page let's say it's the same price as the ASM 129 or whatever, like who really wants to buy that from me one day? And it's like I'm sure there are people, but like you know what I mean? It's like it's not it's more specific. And so I have to my mentality with the art is it's like I have to know that like this is money that I may never get back again, even
Yeah.
though
Yeah.
you probably will, but
Real quick,
it's
we,
really
we,
more you're putting in it. Yeah.
we should ask this question. Do you own any Darkhawk original art?
I do actually own Dark Hawk original art. It's not on the camera. It's actually off to the side, but it's on the wall. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Yeah, no, kind of going back to what you're saying is like a rule of thumb I always like to think of is like we never have any idea what could happen in our lives. And you may need to leverage something from your collection to come up with some cash quick. And so
Yeah.
whenever I think about spending, I do think about that concept of like in a pinch, I don't want to get taken if I have to move this fast. Right. So it's like when I think about like, so I want books that are liquid and things like that. So you're right. Like when it comes to OA, it is more niche and it's going to take a little bit more time to find the buyer to get what you need back from it. So I totally understand that concept. I do want to ask though, back on the Darkhawk. So Darkhawk obviously came out in the '90s, so maybe his original art is a little bit more accessible. And I mean, again, not to hate like or clown you, is not the most popular character. So do you find yourself like I need to kind of dive into this kind of world?
No, you're right. It is more accessible. In fact, like I think there was a cover like I actually am really happy people do this. People will send me like if they see like a Dark Hawk original art, like I might get someone on Instagram and be like, "Hey, did you see this?" And so I've seen like some of his covers be listed at like 8 or 9 grand, which is like, I mean, that's a lot of money, in my opinion. But at the same time,
When you see what
for
covers
like a
go for.
cover, yeah, within that ilk, like it's not that compared to other covers. Like it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is something that is attainable. So I do want to eventually get something like that. But the thing is we brought up Dinesh. Like he actually owns the Dark Hawk One original art cover,
I've
and he
seen it on
owns like a
his
lot
I've
of
seen it on his page, and I think he even
yeah.
showed it in OAX one on one of your videos.
Yes, yes, exactly. And he owns like some of the like the best splash pages from that first issue. So like to me, I'm like, I mean, maybe one day the Dark Hawk one cover. At least I know where to go to find it. So as far as Dark Hawk art is concerned, it's hard for me to like want to buy the smaller pieces because I keep thinking like, well, what if I one day buy that one?
Save up and I make Dinesh an offer. Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
I want to call out. I absolutely, in terms of Prime hobby content, the other video of yours that I thought was phenomenal is when you did buy that. Now, I don't remember the exact that fantasy piece where you even talk. You showed like the text messages with the guy. You
Yeah.
went through like what was the piece again that you bought?
So it was from World of Warcraft.
That's
It
right,
was like
World of
key
Warcraft.
art. Yeah, key art for one of their, their boxes for their game. Um, and yeah, that's one that kind of connects to like what you were asking about with the, choosing which art pieces you want. So I actually bought that piece after I came back from OAX, having not bought anything.
Mm,
Because I went to OAX and I was like, listen, if I see a Darkhawk, Marvel Universe or card art or something, like, yeah, I'm ready to buy it actually if it seems like a good deal. But I went there and I didn't buy anything, and then that original art piece belonged to somebody who was just a member on Comic Art Fans, which is the website where all the art people
yeah.
display their stuff and trade. And that was just one that like I've favorited for like a year and a half or 2 years, and I always come back and I always look at it and I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. Oh man, that's so cool. And then whatever. I thought to myself like, oh, maybe one day I would make an offer, but I didn't. I had never done it, and the reason I decided to do that is because after having gone to OAX, looking around, not buying anything, it made me be like, I always come back to that piece. Like I always go back to that guy's gallery, and I always creep on it, and it's like that to me was a sign that it's like, okay, this is an art piece that like if you spend this money on it, you're going to be okay if you can like never sell it again or whatever, right? Like, because this is the one that I keep coming back to. So it just was like, it just felt like the right piece to go for, and made an offer. And yeah, I made the video about the process for it.
Yeah, and what was great about it is because again, everything is one of one. It's like, with comic books, if I want to buy, Gym 83, I can go to GPA or I can go to Go Collect. I can find comps for grades and things like that. I look at eBay sold listings. With one of ones, it's not exactly the same because you don't have a comp for this piece because that's the only one. But I liked that you showed that like how you went through the process of creating an evaluation in the sense that like you looked up similar pieces by the artist, and like kind of combined all the data together, and like that was really eye-opening for me as I was just kind of getting into that world. So no, I thought that was really cool. I want to say so my we talked about so and I talked about this last week with Sam with OA, and we were talking about this a little bit before we got on. Even though everything is one of one, there still is so much original art out there. And we've talked about like even there, you still kind of have to pick your lane. I shared with you, and we've already talked about a little bit like that. Those 90s sets cards is my lane, and then of course any Silver Surfer related kind of thing. I think you're obviously into the card. You're into fantasy. Are there any other lanes that you would say would be kind of for you?
I think, yeah, it's mostly comic art, card art, fantasy art. Um, I think those are the ones that I'm the most drawn to. I do find myself more drawn to finished pieces though, like oil, like colored
Mm,
pieces, because I feel like it's cool to have a comic art page, but like there is a part of me that's like, well, this is a piece of work that doesn't stand on its own versus like
yeah.
when you have a fully done oil piece, it's like, no, this is the artist's complete work. And there's something about that I think is more special to me. Like this, because this thing stands on its own. Um, so I'm more attracted to that, and I don't know. I think the rabbit hole keeps going because it's like now I'm getting into like I'm like on the other ends of the heritage auction site where I'm like creeping on these like, oh, 1800s fine art pieces, like what are these, and I just look at it.
Yeah.
So
It is funny when you go down the so I've again being that 90s kind of comic card art that I'm looking at, like I've definitely gone down both the heritage rabbit hole to look up past sales like of all time. Like I think you can go back pretty far. And then I've also searched through CAF for the same thing. I will say I've never seen any of the Dark Hawk card art that I'm yet to see. It is funny though. Oh, go ahead.
It is on Cap. There's two pieces that are
How
on
have I
Cap.
missed it?
It's his somebody owns his, so his first comic card is series 2.
Yep.
So that one, someone owns that. And I've definitely slid into that guy's DMs.
Any luck?
And then someone, well, so here's something that Carl said to me. He's just like, if you're not willing to make an offer right away, like you just wanted to establish a rapport. So he always suggests like, message somebody and say like, hey, like your piece is really amazing. I'm such a big fan. Like I grew up with these cards. Where did you get it? And you want to just engage, you know. So I've engaged, but I've not said I'll buy it from you.
Got it. Has he alluded at all that he would be potentially open to moving it?
Not at all.
Yeah, because I've definitely slid into a couple of the messages with that. It does seem like those people that are collecting those card arts like are very now obviously everything has a price. I do agree. I don't have the ability to necessarily go there, but it does definitely seem like those guys are keeping a firm grip on it. Kind of a funny aside, like when it comes to that genre, and then you were talking about the thing you always go back to. So one piece that I always go back to is I really love. I mean, obviously, any of the surfer cards in that would be just ultimate for me. And the artist that represented mine and probably yours childhood for Silver Surfer was Ron Lim, and he did a number of those cards, and specifically he did the only Silver Surfer main card he did was for Series 3. I've never seen the actual front of the card art. I've never seen it myself. However, on CAF, someone has the on the backside, there's the headshots.
Yeah.
And so there's a piece on CAF that has Silver Surfer, Thanos, Adam Warlock, and Captain America because Ron Lim did all those cards. So all four
Those are pretty
headshots,
good ones.
all four
Yeah.
headshots are on the same page. And I've like kind of checked in with that guy every 6 months, be like, hey, curious if you're open to moving this now, or curious. And the thing is like, I have no idea like if he was to say yes, like what my offer would be. I'd have to like figure that out. And maybe that's what I should do is just be like, hey, I would be willing to pay X for it. But it's just funny. It's like it's so simple, but like it would be the ultimate for me because like it just hits all the feels right there.
Yeah, that would be awesome actually to pick it up. And yeah, you probably do have to just be super aggressive. And that's kind of like what I learned from Dinesh and what Carl tells me too is like you just got to be like 20K, and just be like, force and force their hand. Don't let them say no. And
Yeah,
so it's interesting. But I guess if you have that kind of budget, you can buy all those things.
for sure. I'm curious.
Crazy.
What has been your hit rate in terms of the number of people you've slid into their DMs? How many people have you actually gotten responses to? Because I will fit on CAF. There's oftentimes I don't get responses from people I've reached out to on there.
Yeah, it's similar for me. I don't know. Is it like maybe it's half the people will
Yeah,
respond?
I mean maybe even a little, maybe a third. Yeah.
Yeah, could be more like yours. Yeah.
Um. So then going to you were saying the finished pieces. When I think of Marvel, at least on the Marvel side, finished pieces like that really is kind of the Marvel masterpieces cards. Is there anything else that I'm missing there that would fit in that realm besides just like maybe a
No,
commission or something like that?
I think my mind goes more towards like if you got like an Alex Ross original
Oh yeah,
art
yeah,
cover
right.
or something like that. I think there's some cover art that is
Yeah,
like
that's
a
true.
full finished piece.
Yeah. So then what I was gonna ask with that is, so it's kind of limited on the Marvel side. How is it compared on the fantasy side? Like, I mean, I don't know a lot about Magic, but when I think about a Magic card, I can see like I feel like a lot of those pieces are probably finished oil or painting pieces.
Yeah, it's those some of those pieces are like crazy expensive. Like if you go back to like if you know anything about Magic, it came out in like 93 and the first set is called Alpha.
Hmm.
So it's like if you some of those art pieces are yeah, easily in the six-figure range type of
Oh,
thing.
wow. Okay.
Um yeah, and a lot of them, not a lot. Occasionally you'll see someone post it in that Facebook forum that I mentioned where it's like someone will sell their old piece or whatever. Um so that market is really interesting and you know I mentioned the World of Warcraft thing like I'm getting into like the video game art, you know, that's kind of my new
Would that be like
like
the
sort of
box art on the video game?
yeah because so here's my secret thought speculation or whatever is that you know I'm not like that big into like graded video games or video game collecting, but in my mind it sort of makes sense, but I just kind of want to skip over like let me just like go to the end here. Like let me skip over this like WADA video game graded thing and just see if I can find the original art. So if you think about all those like old Nintendo like covers of like Double Dragon and stuff, like they're all like oil painted, you know, styles. So it's like I'm sure that stuff
Have
exists.
you found any?
Now,
I mean, I agree. Like, have you found any of it? Like, is there a
there's one Facebook forum.
VGAF.com?
Yeah, there's one Facebook group kind of like the Magic group that is like I forget what it's called, but it's like video game art. And so I see people sharing stuff that's like, oh yeah, like that game or whatever. But I think what I've heard is I think a lot of those pieces, maybe even like Nintendo still owns some of those things, like you know whatever they are, like the original, you know whatever painting or for Double Dragon or something like that. So I think a lot of that stuff probably exists, but it's really difficult to find.
Yeah. I do think when I think about that kind of like not necessarily comic specific, um, Sam, who I had last week, one of my favorite pieces of his is Campbell's Soup did a label with the X-Men on it. It has like Wolf, and it's by Art Adams. It's like
Mm.
Wolverine, Rogue, Beast, Gambit, maybe. I definitely know it's Wolverine's on there, done by Art Adams, and Sam has the original art for that, and I think that's super cool, right? And then someone I followed this week they posted like their lunchbox as a kid from Wolverine. It had Wolverine on it, and I immediately thought like, there's got to be original art for that. Like that would be cool to find. Like, and I'm just like, where I got to figure out where to start that search. I mean, obviously you could look on eBay, but like I agree. Like when I think of that, like where's somewhere you could find some really cool stuff that would be super nostalgic. And so it's like you got to think like there's art that's on the card, or excuse me, a toy comes on like the cardboard. Oftentimes
Box,
there's
yeah.
art there. Like I mean, so it's like I agree. Like there's definitely places or niches there that you can find some really cool stuff, but where to start is definitely a daunting task for sure.
Yeah, I think the two best places are definitely comic art fans and then joining Facebook groups
Yeah.
that are like maybe in that wheelhouse, you know. But yeah, it is really cool to find like I really like you said, I love like the box art or the key art, you know, that would be put on like, you know, toys or toy
Mhm.
packaging and all that stuff because in a lot of ways that's the thing that you have a lot of nostalgia for. You know, you
Yeah.
remember those images almost more than you know the interior page of a comic sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. No, absolutely. Yeah. That's why I thought that Campbell's soup one, I was like, that is super, especially like you could like, I'm sure you could find like the actual can on eBay and then like just have like a photo of like
Oh
your
yeah,
OA and the soup like that. That would be just like the ultimate satisfaction. I feel like that would be so cool. Um,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So then talk to me, like, we can kind of transition a little bit from OA. Where else what else is going on with you in terms of, kind of what you're looking or hoping and focusing on, that kind of thing? Any upcoming, or where are you going with that?
I mean, you know, OA. I'm always still looking with the OA stuff. You know, I'm still looking with the comic stuff. Um, I think now there's a lot of like you know big keys that I'd like to pick up for myself at some point. You know, it's like probably get an AF-15 at some point, but it's funny because it's like you know I, you can just have so much more patience with comic
Hmm.
books these days, and I'm stubborn in that it's like I have to find it for under GPA.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just like that type of person because it's like I don't have to have it, which is it's a different mentality. But yeah, there's still like a ton of comic keys that I would like, and I think I just enjoy the hunt of things still. Like I just like going to the comic store and seeing like, oh, what's here? Like what's like a good deal, or oh, this is like finding books and stuff like that. So I'm still very much enjoying that. Um, I can't get into Pokemon cards as much as I wish I could because everyone is going crazy about Pokemon cards.
Dude, I
It's
tell you,
just
I think
not it
about
for
that.
me.
I think about that all the time. Like, again, I know nothing. I mean, obviously, I know what a Charizard is. I know that is literally my level of knowledge. But then, like, when you hear of what kind of money people are making on selling Pokemon cards, and it's like,
It's insane.
if I just invested a little time to understand some, like, we talk about using the hobby to fund the hobby. F that, I'll use Pokemon to fund the hobby kind of thing and make buku bucks.
Totally.
But it's just like I've never gotten over like, okay, I gotta really do my research now and learn the hobby. And I just haven't. So and it's like I have no interest in it, to be perfectly honest. Like to do like I would much rather spend an hour going down the comic art fan rabbit hole than I would learning about, even though that theoretically could give me the art that I am going down the rabbit hole on. But
Yeah.
I totally feel you on that. Um, where do you stand? I'm curious. The complete kind of pivot here. How are you feeling? I know you do a lot of videos on the MCU. I'm curious, like did you watch Daredevil, for example? Like, where are you at with Daredevil, or have you started that or finished it, or
I've
like?
seen the first two episodes, but I haven't finished or gone from there.
Okay,
I fully intend to finish or watch it all. I only saw the first release of it.
any
And I
initial
heard
thoughts on the first two?
it was okay. I thought it was pretty good, Like I'm not like a super big Daredevil fan, and I know everyone loved the Netflix show, and I thought the Netflix show was pretty good. But I was just like, yeah, this is cool. But I don't know.
Yeah, I loved the Netflix show, and I really enjoyed the news. I finished it. I watched it every week. Um, I definitely have some things that I would definitely call out as some criticism, but overall, I thought it was great. What are your feelings on upcoming movies? Where things are at movie wise. Like, what are your thoughts? I know you've done videos on this, but like, it's kind of cool to kind
Yeah.
of talk about it and hear it kind of in a conversation.
Yeah. I think that my main criticism for I think a lot of the Marvel stuff is like I do think that a lot of the projects, the craft has been like not clearly just not as good as it used
Mhm.
to be. Although I'm very hopeful for the Avengers films with like the Russos and McFeely is writing the script for that. So I think that I would hope that will sort of return to form. Um, but yeah, obviously the big talk of the town was like the Fantastic Four and like you said, your favorite character, Silver Surfer, but it's not going to be Norrin Rad. They're going with the female Silver Surfer, and the internet, as the internet does, lost its mind. No matter how you feel about it, my feeling is it's like I'm curious, like why they make their choices. I'm willing to accept that there's reasons. I know that there's reasons, but it's like we'll just have to see. It's like I know I think it would probably be easier if they just chose to do Norn Rad. I think that they know that, but I think that they're just like, okay, we're gonna not do it.
I mean,
Maybe I
go
was
ahead,
gonna
go
say
ahead, finish.
maybe in their mind, you know. I've been in some of these rooms before, not specifically Marvel, but just like in the Hollywood rooms, and it's like it could be like the checking boxes thing. That's possible for sure, or it could just be like hey guys, well, the other Fantastic Four movies did the same story. We need to make ours different, and
Yeah,
and people just do that.
I mean, I am the firm believer of I 100% agree. There's reasons for it all, and to me, it's always business related reasons, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
so, is there a component of checking boxes? I think yes, in the light of the logic is checking boxes is what everyone wants us to do. That's the ticket to the longer term, bigger money. Like whether or not like whoever's making the film, whether or not whatever their agenda is, like it's not going to get made, in my opinion, unless there's someone there that's in charge of the money that says the equation adds up to a bigger profit line or margin on do it like
No, I
in the
totally
long
agree
run.
with you. They think that this is the best financial choice to do this.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And I mean, like, this is the thing. Like, so Mike here is saying, like, they probably need Galactus and Wayne. You can't do that. Norton, yes. Norin, Mike. You know, I personally, I mean, I agree with everyone's theory that in Fantastic Four specifically, like, it's likely because obviously they're not in our 616 universe. They have to get to the 616. So it's an easy theory to make that, like, they probably lose. And therefore then they'll go to the 616, and that's totally valid, and therefore maybe that's why they don't want to use Norin here. I will say, like, personally, and I put this in a post, like, I am super excited for the Fantastic Four. It's my favorite team, and I've been obviously disappointed with the other movies, and I'm, even though my personal feelings about Silver Surfer does not take away from my excitement at all. That being said, like, Silver Surfer was my boyhood favorite. He's everything to me. And so it's like, obviously I wanted to see it done as close to that as possible. And like, people are like, well, you know, people told me like, oh, but you're going to get Norn Rad eventually. And I always think like, yes, but like, this is the story as far as Fantastic Four and Silver Surfer. Like, to me, this is the story. And so I want, I want, you know, so there's going to be disappointment in me in not seeing Norn Rad in it. And then like, because then, you know, they're not going to like bring them to 616 and then redo the Galactus storyline, and this time they win. Like, they're just not going to do that. Like, do I think they'll have Galactus
sure
again? Absolutely. But they're not going to recreate that movie again for the third time. So that there is always going to be disappointment for me, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I am super pumped for what looks to be, in my opinion, a great Fantastic Four movie, and I looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. It's like, for me, it's like I would just rather see the Silver Surfer that I grew up with, because I like Norman Rad Silver Surfer too. And I think you're right. It's like, yeah, even if we do get him, which maybe we won't.
Yeah,
I'm
maybe we won't, yeah.
mentally preparing. I'm mentally preparing for that too. Maybe we won't, but like, it's one thing I do think about, and this is my very charitable interpretation for like the people in Marvel Studios when they're working on this stuff, is it's like, this is its own universe, so like they can kind of do whatever they want. Like, nobody knows, like, it's kind of hard to say because everyone kind of knows these characters going into these movies now, but at the same time, like, when I go into a theater and the lights go down and like the movie starts, it's like, well, the rules of this universe are whatever they are. Like, whatever I know about Marvel outside of this doesn't necessarily apply to like the MCU. So my thought process is like, I, the viewer, shouldn't even have the concept of Nor and Rad, because within this continuity, these are all new characters that I'm absorbing. Does that make sense?
No, 100%.
So it's like,
100%.
I can't be projecting like, oh, it has to be Norman Rad, because it's like, no. This is the story that I'm being served. So whatever I get here is just, this is this continuity.
Yeah, and I mean, there always is going to be. I mean, the movies are always an adaptation of the comic, right? So there is license to do that. And I mean, like, at the end of the day, what I want is good movies, good writing. That's at the end of the day, that will set. For example, right? I love Infinity War and Endgame, as I think every person I've ever known in this hobby loves this movie, right? As a Silver Surfer fan, there's a small point of contingent of disappointment that Silver Surfer isn't in those movies, because he had a huge role in the Infinity Gauntlet saga comic run, which again was another huge storyline for me as a child, and he's very prominent in that, and then him not being in that. But at the end of the day, great story, great writing, great movie makes me forget that. And so that to me is always going to be first and foremost. So I do want to ask.
I
Okay,
think
go ahead.
Yeah, no, go.
I was gonna say, you did mention continuity, and this is something I've talked about with a number of people, even on here. Continuity, I think, was one of the things that everyone talks about why the Infinity Saga um, was so great because everything worked together. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on continuity continuing forward? Because personally, I think now, as much as continuity was such a huge strength for that kind of saga, I think we're now at a point, personally, I think continuity is what is kind of now hurting them because every movie, like, I'm at a point now where it's like, I don't need to see a new movie. And if you introduce a new character, I don't need to know where they were during the snap. Like, I don't, like, it's time to kind of like close that chapter. Like, for example, like the Captain America. Did you see the new Captain America movie? So, like, there was that scene where like Harrison Ford's giving this speech and he talks about the snap and it's just like, okay, here we go again. We got to make sure we always reference. And it's like, at some point, we got to move on. And while I like the idea of continuity, I think we're at a point because we're so many films in that I think it's time that they focus on good movies and kind of branch out more. Which is more in line with comics. When you think about it, like if we take the storyline we're talking about with Fantastic Four, Galactus came to eat the entire planet, and it was only the Fantastic Four and Silver Surfer that were really in that storyline, right? The Avengers didn't come, the X-Men didn't come, but no one at the time, no one was like, how come they weren't involved? Like, and I feel like that's kind of where we're at in movies. Like, let's just focus on making good stories in these films and not worry about tying it together. Now, I do think there can be some through lines that work, and then definitely movies that do intersect. Like, I do like the idea of like, let's have a couple different paths. Like, we can go a street level kind of continuity and a cosmic continuity and a horror, like Midnight Suns kind of thing for in that way you kind of really start to branch out. And then, like, what's kind of cool is like we do have some characters like Spider-Man, Doctor Doom on the villain side that they actually do intertwine, and that could be a lot of your kind of connectivity. I don't know. I'm curious your thoughts there.
I get what you're getting at. But the thing is like I do like the continuity. Like I respect for like the world building aspect,
Mm-hmm.
but it has to be tight, and the reality is like continuity is hard to do. But
Yeah.
like hit, the hitting the highs of it is like it's higher risk, higher reward. It's like if you can make it all work and feel more cohesive, then like it's going to be that much more satisfying, when you actually end up watching the movie. But to your point, it seems like they've lost the plot,
Mm-hmm.
with it. And I think there's a reason why they did that, because it's like they're just doing like all these different projects and it was kind of like shotgunning in. They're doing TV and they're doing this and they're doing that versus like the first three phases. You kind of the movies didn't really stack on top of each other as much. Like they were more of like you went from Avengers 1 to Captain America 2 to Thor 2 to Iron Man
Mm-hmm.
3, and it's like the same characters that are like in every movie. So like keeping the continuity cohesive was like easier to do at that time. And now it's harder, but it feels like they've clearly course corrected a lot and they've like tabled a lot of their projects to where they're like, hey, we got to slow this train down so we can make it more cohesive. And so you would hope that they can kind of recover it a little bit, but because I think they need to do that. Like I always think about it in terms of like, I don't know if you're like a WWE like
I mean, I
wrestling
was
fan or
I was as a kid.
yeah, but like when you listen to them talking about it, it's like there's this like relationship with you kind of know where you want to take the story, but you have to listen to the audience and like the things change and you pick up like, oh, this worked really well, and you kind of bring it into like the next show or whatever. And it's like that's what Marvel sort of needs to do, as far as like, hey, this movie came out and people really loved whatever Gambit and Deadpool. Now we're going to use Gambit more, or whatever. Like you have to kind of have that, and it feels like when they're making so many projects that they're doing, and they have to like parallel path all these things, then you have to get into a place where you have to start saying, like Kevin Feige has to say, like, oh, you're making She-Hulk, but like, don't say anything about, such and such show. And then it's like, oh, you're making this project and don't say anything about this other one. And the reason you just have to do that is so that they don't step on each other. Because if you contradict continuity, that's even worse than having, it just be its own thing. So I think I think that now they're hopefully trying to do a better job with it. And we'll have to see. And I'm all for it if they can make the continuity work. But I think we all know at this point, like Kevin Feige's just like he's just like counting the days to like, God, I just can't wait to get to Secret Wars so that we can like blow up the universe and end this movie and start,
Yeah, I mean, and also too,
from
like going
step one
back,
again.
to the business decisions, right? Like, there's got to be a point, right? Because I mean, for these movies to make the money that they want them to make money, which is billions of dollars, that
Yeah.
audience supersedes our community, right? Like, to make billions of dollars, the comic book fans need to go 3 times, and then they need to get everyone else that's not comic book fans be like, this is the zeitgeist. Like, I gotta go see Infinity War. I gotta go see Endgame. Those people also have to go to make the $1 billion. And there's some point in the equation with the continuity thing where it's like, how many movies do I have to see to then want to go see the next one, right? If that number gets if the homework gets too large, right,
Yeah.
there's going to be a negative impact. And while I said I do think they should branch out, I agree with you. Like, there does still, they don't need to, there's again, it's hard. It is, world building is hard, connectivity is hard. In a perfect scenario, like, there is a way that I do think, like, you have kind of mini franchise lines, but they do tie together, and that they're not. So, and then, like, we do have crossovers and things like that. So
Yeah.
that's why
And this
Feige
is
gets the
just
big bucks. So makes those
yeah,
decisions.
this is but it's almost like this is just like this is any creative medium, like this is always a challenge you'll have to solve. Like if you're the person making the next Mario Brothers video game, you have to balance this idea of like, well, we have to assume that there's going to be enfranchised audience that plays this, and then also there's going to be that next generation of kids who play Mario for the first time. So
Mm-hmm.
like, you have to figure out like what that is, or how do you onboard new people while also catering to like the people that are really the hardcore audience. And so no matter what you do, whether it's like the MCU or even current comic books, like this is what they always have to do, right? Like if you pick up
Yeah.
ASM right now, you have to think about like the people who are following it versus like people who are just starting,
Yeah.
and or
100%.
whatever, video games, TV, everything. You always it's all building on itself. So I don't know where this is just a persistent problem, and my expectation is that it's like you guys are professionals, you're getting paid really well,
That's why you
so
get paid the
you
big
have
bucks. You got
yeah,
to
this is why you
deliver.
get paid big. This is why you exit. This is yeah, this you got to execute. And it's like to me, it's like yeah, like it's unacceptable to turn in movies that are like, you know,
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of similar. You see the same in sports. Like, you got paid like, I'm not paying you for what you did. I'm paying you now for what you're gonna do, right? And so,
right,
like, when I think about that, Kevin Feige is obviously forever goated for landing the ship on the Infinity Saga, right? But I'll be at a point where if FF flops, if Doomsday flops, if Secret Wars flops, you know, I'll be of the ilk that's like, it's time for Kevin Feige to move on. He'll still be GOAT status, but we need to get in a new perspective, right? For me,
totally.
like, because he did all that doesn't earn him the right to keep hold of the ship as long as he wants to.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that that's yeah. It's like a coach of a football team. It's like
Yeah,
Pete Carroll, you got to go, man. You're a goat, but you got to go.
exactly. I mean, that talk. I mean, I will forever love Pete Carroll. He brought my only title here, but I was on board. It was time to make a change. Uh,
Yeah.
Real quick, as we cross the hour here, we can kind of wrap up here. I do want to, we talk about MCU. I am just real curious, real quick, on thoughts on James Gunn's DCU, and what are
Mm.
your? I know people seem to be on two fences of the Superman movie that we have. Either they think it looks great. People are like, oh, it's a comic book. It looks like a comic book movie. Like, it's going to be really fun. And then there's the other side of the equation where there's so many people that are like, this looks corny, he looks lame, blah blah blah. Where are you on this fence?
I'm super excited about it. Like super excited to watch it. Uh, I think James Gunn has done excellent movies. I believe that it's going to be of a certain level of quality.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is it going to be a grand slam? You know,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it has to be a grand slam. If the plan is for this to be like the DCEU and it's going to be this massive franchise like the MCU is, and it's going to go on for whatever the next decade, and we're going to have Booster Gold and Swamp Thing and all these other things. It's like this movie's got to crush it, just absolutely crush it. And so like that's really the big question to me. It's like I'm sure it'll be fun, but like okay fun is like not good enough. Now, when I watched the trailer for the first time, I was a little more like medium on it. Uh and people were very upset that I was like medium on it, but like I don't know. He's like, people were just so upset. I was like, and I understand why, because it's like people think that like there's like a big I don't know this stuff, but there's a big divide with like the Zack Snyder's universe and all this stuff. And to me, I'm just like, I don't know, whatever. But um yeah, I just thought I really like that actor. He was in this TV show called Hollywood that was really good. I thought when I heard that he was cast to be Superman, I was like, oh, that's a good choice. I think
Mm.
he's gonna be a good person for this. Um, so yeah, I'm excited about it. I think it's gonna perform better than Fantastic Four.
Are
And
you talking about
Superman's my favorite.
perform better, like review wise or dollar wise?
Dollar wise.
Yeah, I could see that. I agree. I think and just to put I am super excited. I will be there day one. I love Superman, and I personally like the vibe, at least so far. Like I like the original kind of blue suit versus the dark. Don't get me wrong, I loved Henry Cavill as Superman, but like I thought those movies sucked. Uh, I'm on board though with like the
I
suit
agree,
and
actually.
yeah, I'm on board with this. Like on board with the suit, everything about it. Like I love the vibrancy I get. The Superman theme music also just slaps. I mean, it's so great. Like I love it, and so I will absolutely be there. But I agree. I can't think of a movie that's had more pressure on its shoulders to succeed than that Superman movie. And I do think, like, kind of taking it back to sports, we always love and we make movies about underdog stories, and we always think how unbelievable it is. But the thing I always think about is underdogs have nothing to lose. There's almost no pressure, right? It's you got there, like it's an automatic you win. Even if you didn't win the title, you got to the finals. Like that's a win because no one expected to get there. There was no pressure. And any extra win is just gravy on top of the, frosting on top of the cake. I think the hardest thing to do in sports, and I know there's a lot of LeBron James fans or haters out there. I personally love LeBron James. And I think what he did is the most difficult thing in sports when you've been anointed from high school and the pressure is on. And then like to deliver under that level of pressure, I think is absolutely incredible. And I don't think when it comes to his legacy, we talk about that enough. And so in that same light, it is a huge achievement if James Gunn hits the grand slam on Superman.
I totally agree with you. And I absolutely think, yeah, I, I think you make a good case where it's like, yeah, it's easier when you're the underdog to like overperform versus like when the expectations are there. And this is like a little bit of a sidebar conversation, but like I get into my arguments with my film friends about how I'm like the Russo brothers making Endgame, those guys should have won an Academy Award for Best Director. And it's not just the movie. Do you know, I don't care. I'm gonna say it right now. It is so much easier to like go off to Alaska and film your random indie movie in like the cabin with no like, massive financial corporate structure of pressure that comes after you and, executives questioning all your creative decisions and whatever you make your small little movie and it's great. Like comparing that to like your work, you're at Disney, you're making the biggest movie in the history of movies with an ensemble of cast that is like probably the biggest star-studded cast that there is in all of movies, and like
And
all
dealing
the
with their
egos
egos
and all
and
the
things like
handlers,
that. Yeah.
the egos, the PR people, like the pressure, like everyone coming to you, like having to deal with the marketing people and like being in these giant boardroom meetings about like, well, you got to include this character and use them for 5 more minutes because we got to sell this many toys and da 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 da. It's like, dude, like what they accomplished is a feat that I think that no other director like could have ever done. Like
Yeah.
it is so incredible to me that it's like that right there, movie aside, is worthy of an award. So
Yeah. That's very true. Yeah.
I go just but tying it back to your point, yeah, I think that if James Gunn, like, yeah, he's like he's goated. Like he's just like a filmmaking god for taking on this project, and if he
Yeah.
lands the plane, he'll be, you know.
And I mean, and then and you think about his success, like you talked about, he's made excellent movies. When you go through the list of excellent movies, though, he's made movies that no one had high expectations for. I would say, like Guardians of the Galaxy. Like personally, I didn't know who the hell the Guardians. I mean, I grew up with Marvel. I'd never heard of the Guardians. I take that back. There was a
Yeah, same.
Series 3 card that showed the Guardians, and it was actually different
Yes.
characters than were in the movie. And so I remember when they were talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, I was like, I actually thought it was because from the X-Men animated series. You remember what's the team in the cosmic side that Cyclops' dad is the leader of?
Oh, Gladiator, the Shi'ar Empire.
Yeah, but there's a team that Cyclops' dad leads up.
Oh, Corsair,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 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 yeah. There's like
Yeah.
a team. That's what I actually thought originally. Corsairs, yeah. That's when Guardians of the Galaxy was announced. Starjammers. That's what it is. Thank you,
Yes,
Ryan.
that's what it is. Yeah, yeah.
Starjammers.
Shout out to chat. Shout out to
Yeah.
Lunch Money and Colossus.
Yeah, and so when they announced Guardians, I remember thinking, I was like, "Is that Starjammers? Is that what's going on?" I didn't, and until I went and actually saw the movie, uh, I realize it wasn't the Starjammers. But then it was I freaking loved it, right? But again, there was no pressure on that, right? Same with some of the other projects he's done, and so again here, this is his first like this is it, and like this is the, I mean, obviously Batman as well, but like 1A and 1B for DC, this is where it starts. And so the pressure's on
Yeah,
every aspect of that movie.
yeah, it is. You know, but I think you know, he seems like he has a good grasp on it. So there's no pressure. There's no pressure if you have conviction. It seems like he has
Yeah.
conviction on his stuff.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, he definitely does seem confident, and I like it, and I can't wait. I'll be there. I'll be the first. I mean, I'm the type of guy that will go for. Are you a type of guy that goes first day, or do you wait, or what's
Yeah,
your kind of?
I'll be there first day for Superman. Yeah, I think you kind of Captain America, Brave New World. I wasn't the first day,
Okay, what
but
about just
Superman.
what about? So we got Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, Superman. All three first days, or where you stand?
Uh, Yeah, I think I would be first day for each of them. Thunderbolts looks good to me. I'm
Yeah,
actually pretty excited about it.
I,
So
I agree, and what is great about Thunderbolts? Well, even though we can say Daredevil was like Daredevil, there's a there's a mishmash of kind of Marvel in the bad stage, and then Marvel like we need a new direction stage, right? And they've kind of
yeah,
combined the two there. Daredevil and then Brave New World suffered from that, right? Like they did the reshoots, and so you can definitely tell like how clunky it was, like what was before and what was after. Thunderbolts is the first 100% since the new direction. This is fully fresh material, and I think it looks great.
yeah,
I'm super excited to go see it next week. And then yeah, so Fantastic Four will also be on that, like, new direction side of things. Everything movie. Now I guess we'll get a couple shows like Ironheart that were made back in the time that we didn't care for, but like aside from that, like the big ones are all going to be kind of like new direction Marvel. Let's start clean the slate and see what we got. So that is exciting for sure. So yeah, I'll be a first day for all three for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a good kind of ending point. So Mickey, thanks for returning again. This was a lot of fun. Real quick, if you want to give any shouts to your channel or anything like that, by all means, go for it.
Yeah, no, thanks again for inviting me. It's always good hanging out here. A shout out to everyone in the chat for having a good conversation. And yeah, if you guys are watching the rewind and you want to hop over to my channel, Swagglehaus, I try to put out videos regularly throughout the week, talking about comic news or things going on in the secondary market. And now I'm trying to slide in a little more OA content when I can.
Yeah.
Although, it's not everyone's cup of tea. You have to kind of like slowly drip feed it in.
Wait, have
But I'm
people
slowly.
pushed back on the OA content? Or they're like, this isn't
No,
like
it's not that they push back. It's like if I do a video covering some big comic book sale, like then a certain amount of people will want to watch that. If I cover a big comic art sale, clearly not as many people are interested in that sort of thing. So
see, I would
you can just
definitely get into that. Yeah.
yeah. So there's a little bit of it, but we'll see. So but yeah, try to put that stuff out, and hopefully you guys hop over the channel and enjoy it.
Right on. Yeah, and his links are in the description. If you, I mean, I assume if you found me, you've found Mickey years ago. So, but it is all there. But yeah, thanks
Not always
again.
true.
Yes. But yeah, no, thanks again for coming on, and everyone, thanks for joining. Those in the chat, I apologize if I was distracted talking to Mickey about what was going on and didn't highlight enough comments. I apologize, but I appreciate you all being here, and for those on the rewatch, thank you as well. But otherwise, peace out, guys.